Hi, I'm James from Chaosium. I sat down with Mike Mason and we talked about 2021. We talked about what happened to Call of Cthulhu during this year and Mike's impressions on how the game developed over the last 12 months. I'm going to jump across that interview in just a moment, but first, remember to subscribe to the Chaosium YouTube channel. It helps us out and it lets us make more content like this. Thanks.
Well, 2021 was an interesting year, I think, for many people around the world, not least of which because of a number of great Call of Cthulhu books that came out, let alone anything else that might have happened during this time. But if I start back in the early mists of 2021, that kind of forgotten time of legend and myth, then in the early part of 2021, we had the print release of the Malleus Monstrorum, the compendium, the bestiary of Cthulhu monsters and entities from beyond the spaces of time, which came out, which was lovely to see, a lovely kind of a slipcase two-set book. So that was a kind of a long road to get that out, but I'm very pleased to say, it finally arrived physically in people's hands at the beginning of the year, and hopefully will grace many people's shelves and be a source of inspiration for throwing in monsters and writing scenarios and campaigns for many years to come. Then we started to kind of roll into the very early kind of parts of the 40th anniversary of Call of Cthulhu, which we would eventually come to around October, November. But before then, we were sowing the seeds, and the first thing was the reprints of a couple of older campaigns. Firstly, Horror on the Orient Express, which was released in a hardback book form rather than box set, and also the very classic and not reprinted for quite a long time, Beyond the Mountains of Madness, which again was printed in a hardback form. So those two enabled us to kind of get some slightly older material out to people's hands, at people that wanted it, and so they didn't have to go scry on auction websites or strange deals in back alleys of gaming stores or whatever it might be. They could actually get a copy and have a read or have a run with it if they so choose. So that was really nice to be able to get those back into people's hands as well. It's been it's kind of year of old and new, hasn't it? So then it was followed by the Call of Cthulhu Classic Kickstarter, which was the kind of early nod to the 40th anniversary, with the original kind of second edition box set and some of the very early supplements for Call of Cthulhu, Shadows of Yog-Sothoth and the Cthulhu Companion and so forth, all kind of being bought out through that Kickstarter, with all the art being kind of redigitized and the text being relayed out, but in the old style format. And obviously that then progressed through the year till it finally is on its way to everyone. So that was kind of cool, seeing some old stuff and so on. And then really, apart from one other thing, we jump into the new stuff. We started the year with started the new year with Malleus and some very old stuff coming out. And then we turn to new stuff, which is, I often say, the whole point about the Cthulhu line, it's not a greatest hits line. It's a balancing between some re-releasing some really great old material that deserves a kind of the new light of dawn, and new material that continues to push the game in interesting directions. And so what we had coming out next was Children of Fear by Lynn Hardy, which was pushing Cthulhu in a new direction. It was a great campaign set across China, India, and Tibet of the the 1920s. It was deeply steeped in the kind of the mysticism and so forth of the era and also the region, and presented a number of ways how you could play that campaign, whether you wanted to play it without any mythos involvement at all, or to layer in various different ideas of mythos involvement throughout the campaign. So that was really nice to kind of be able to kind of offer a kind of smorgasbord of things you could do with this campaign and take it in the direction that your interests lie. And I know Lynn was very relieved to get that book out after many years of beavering away on it. So that was really cool to see. And then of course there was the how to write a Call of Cthulhu scenario for publication, and this is kind of a nod also to the Miskatonic repository, which this year particularly has seen a real kind of growth in terms of the number of people writing for it, and also the quality of the material that's now appearing here on the repository. There's some fantastic scenarios available there, at a very reasonable price point, and allows writers old and new to experiment and try things out and to develop their experience, and allows everyone else to find some really quick to play, easy to use scenarios as well, that cover a really wide range of kind of subject matter that we can possibly cover in as Chaosium on its own. We just don't have the resources to put that much kind of stuff out. So it's really nice, a really nice compliment. And obviously feeding into that was the course designed with Paul Fricker of how to write, a scenario to put on the repository, which happened earlier in the year, and again has just recently been repeated in the fall of 2021. So that was really cool. So a big shout out to the repository and our repository ambassadors, Alan, Bridget, and Nick, who are doing some great work in supporting that, supporting the writers on that as well. Then we had that other one book, that old book that's new. We had the Call of Cthulhu 40th anniversary rulebook special edition, which was the lovely, how do I say, the cover, was kind of all occult, strange angles and stuff, and it had a lovely kind of fly jacket, and allowed us to, inject in the haunting scenario with one of the very first scenarios for Call of Cthulhu back in the rule book, and also a lot of kind of reminiscence and memories and details from people involved with the creation of Call of Cthulhu and its development through the years in the new preface section for that anniversary rule book. So that was really nice to see. And then we kind of ended the year with 2 brand new products. So we started the year with a bit of old, end the year with a bit of new, all about balance, isn't it? So we had the Keeper's Tips book come out, which is in fact, this one, which is a small pocket book of, well, it does what it says on the tin. It's Keeper's Tips. It's full of advice and ideas for how to get the best out of Call of Cthulhu from the Keeper's perspective. So there's advice on using props and timing in your game, pacing, using monsters, how to use NPCs, and from a real range of different keepers, of various kind of levels of experience, from somebody like Scott David Alanowski, who has been running Call of Cthulhu since 1981, and Becca Scott, who's been running online to great celebration for the last couple of years, to Bridget Jeffries, who's a relative newcomer when you compare to Scott, and a few people like myself and Lynn, who have had a few ideas as well, Paul Fricker and so forth. So there's a bunch of ideas, and we don't all. What I like is that we don't all agree with one another. There are some tips that really contradict one another. It's all about finding your game, because the whole point and the reason I like it to be contradictory is because there is not one way to play Call of Cthulhu. There's no right way to do it. It's all about making the game right for you and your play group. And so that's why, 7th edition rulebook, there's lots of options in it. There's lots of ideas and things to make the game that you want to make. And, you might even go turn up the pulp dial and so forth. So that's why I like all that sort of stuff. And then we close out with Cults of Cthulhu, which was a book that was consuming my time for the year before. A book that written by myself and Chris Lackey of the HP Lovecraft Literary Podcast, and a culmination of many ideas and years of what is it about cults. At the end of the day, a lot of Call of Cthulhu games aren't about, you know, defeating the monsters. It's about discovering and battling the cults, the humans who have been touched in some way by the Cthulhu mythos. And so, you know, while they, you know, often appear in scenarios, there's never really been a lot of written about, you know, the cults of Cthulhu or the cults of, you know, Hastur or whoever. So this book was an attempt to really focus down on a human level, what the mythos means on a human level, where you become corrupted by the mythos in a sense, and that, you know, that directs your agenda effectively. You know, why join a cult? Why be the high priestess? You know, what's in it for you? And so the book explores these kind of things and details, you know, some example cults. Some are drawn from literature, from you know, Lovecraft's original stories, like the Call of Cthulhu story itself. Some are new, you know, some are invented that we've kind of taken inspiration from, you know, various things for, and then, you know, it culminates with, you know, how to create your own cult and design it to kind of work in your games in terms of the kind of plot and campaign you want to run, and 3 scenarios, which are, you know, fairly large scenarios that you can run in any time period, but are normally set in a Gaslight era, a 1920s, 30s one, and a modern day one, and to really kind of you know, make use of some of the example cults that are described earlier in the book. So it's full of fabulous artwork, and it's wonderful. So I'm really pleased to be able to kind of get that book out, you know, at the close of the year, and that's out in PDF currently as we speak. But come you know, come the new year 2022, you know, the print edition will be you know, hot on its heels, really. So it's been you know, now I look back, it's been quite a busy year. I mean, when isn't it? But it's, you know, we've had a very kind of interesting year with, you know, with the Call of Cthulhu anniversary, you know, at the end of October. You know, I kind of think of it between Halloween and the 13th of November. Technically it's the 13th of November, but that period for me is Call of Cthulhu period, because, you know, if you're going to play a game around Halloween, why wouldn't you be playing Call of Cthulhu? But anyway, so it's been a very exciting year, and I just want to kind of, you know, I did a shout out to the Miskatonic repository ambassadors earlier. It would be remiss not to thank some of the people that actually enabled all of the things I've talked about to happen. The people that don't get a lot of publicity, they don't appear on videos like me, and so forth. So I did want to give a shout out to Nick Nicario, who does all the layout for the Call of Cthulhu books, who you know, tirelessly you know, works and changes things when I keep going back and saying, could you change that? Could you do this? There's a mistake here, can we change it? You know, they're all my mistakes, obviously. Change this and do that. And he's, you know, tirelessly, wonderfully positive, and you know, produces some fantastic looking books. So there's Nick. There's also Dustin Wright, who sits in the background making books appear at your front door or on the shelves of gaming stores. Without Dustin, how you would get your Call of Cthulhu books, I do not know. He makes that all happen. The magic is that he's like the Wizard of Bayakis, sending these Bayakis out with their bags of books to arrive at your door in game stores and warehouses. So big thank you to Dustin for making that happen as well. Obviously, thanks to Lynn, you know, who is you know, just wonderful in terms of not only, you know, writing our own books, but, you know, helping to get you know, all these other books that we do out as well. Working alongside Lynn is always a pleasure. Obviously, she has been sneaking away at times over this year to work on something that's not Call of Cthulhu. I don't know why, but allegedly it's something to do with water, rivers or something. I think it's something to do with rivers. She's been talking about getting some waders and a fishing rod. I think that's to do with that, but I'm not sure. But hopefully we'll find out in the new year what that's all about. And so, and then there's everyone else at Chaosium who all helps. You know, Rick Mites, who, you know, works alongside Rick in terms of production and layout, who gets the books to print. There's Michael over in Poland, who helps with, you know, working with the printers and warehousing and getting books from printers to around the world. Mob and Brian, who helped to tell people about this stuff and keep it in the consciousness of people and everyone else. Everyone else. Chaosium's grown from a very small company to a slightly larger company. Still, I wouldn't say not even medium sized. Still a small company, but it was a tiny company. There's a few more people around, and it would take far too long to list everyone. So thank you to everyone else that I've not mentioned at Chaosium. Thank you to all of our team, and also, most importantly, thank you to all of you people who are watching this and who play the game, who play Call of Cthulhu and enjoy and teach people how to play it, and or have been playing for the last 40 years, and you're still playing the first campaign you ever started with, and you're still going 40 years later. Great. Thank you very much. We do it because we hope you have fun with it. That's the whole point. And I'm glad to hear old and new folk coming to the game and continuing to have frights and scares and delve into mysteries beyond human imagination and just have a lot of fun doing it. So thank you to you. So here's to a year gone, and we look forward to the next 40 years.
Hear, hear. I absolutely agree. It's been a great year with great people and great products and great things to come. I want to ask you one more question just to get a little bit of line editor perspective on the year. I imagine that balancing a game line like Call of Cthulhu, you have to put a lot of consideration into executing plans that have been in place for a long time, but you also need to be able to react to what is immediately coming at you. Could I ask you what the thing that happened this year that was the biggest, most anticipated, most long-awaited element, and what was the biggest surprise in terms of what we brought out or what happened, whether it was published or whether it started development? Anything you'd like to mention?
I was really pleased to get Malleus out, and I was really pleased to get Call of Cthulhu out, because those are the two books I personally have spent the last 2 to 4 years working on and off. Obviously, other people supported those books as well, particularly Chris Lackey, spent 2 years before me working on it. And so for me, those were the highlights in terms of that. I mean, every time we put something new out, or even if it's a new old thing, it's kind of cool to see it there. But those two, just because I put a lot of myself in those books, there's a lot of kind of my ideas around the Cthulhu mythos and what it is went into those books. So it's kind of 40 years of thought distilled into some of those pages. So that's why they kind of stand out for me. In terms of surprises, that's a difficult one. I mean, I'm a relatively, some folks would say, fairly organized kind of chap. So I tend to have my crystal ball, and I know what's coming, in the months ahead. However, there are times when the dark shadow of a hunting horror will fly over me and drop some unexpected parcel, and which I open and go, oh, I wasn't expecting this, and need to make something up. So there hasn't been a lot of surprises in the year gone. It's more been a case of opportunities that haven't yet been realized. So this year we've had, there's a couple of things that have come out, there's a couple of things that we have worked with some partners on that will bear fruit in the next 1 to 2 years. Now, at this point, I really can't say what they are, but they're really cool. And they're both sort of campaigns. They're both brand new, and they're both very, very different in terms of what they're about and so on. But I think they will be. I think people will be very excited when we're able to talk more about them. So those are the kind of surprises. I'm really apologizing that I can't really give you too much about them. However, you will be excited when you hear about them, when we're able to talk about them, maybe sometime next year. But those kind of things kind of drop out of the blue. they kind of gate in, and suddenly they're there, and they're kind of like, why wouldn't we want to put that out? That is just great. And so there's a couple of those things that, as I say, will come out later on. And obviously when that happens, we have to kind of make room for them. We have to kind of go, okay, well, you know, this book we were planning to do then, we're going to have to kind of move around or push back a bit, or, you know, get somebody else to kind of help us to get it out, because with just Lynn and myself, you know, developing the books in this way, there's, you know, there are literally only so many hours in the day that we can do Call of Cthulhu, and you know, and the majority of the hours in the day are spent on Call of Cthulhu. It's not like we're slacking off, but we have to kind of balance all that, and so that's kind of a little bit of the downside. But we think at the end of the day, you know, everything will come eventually, and it'll all be fabulous and marvelous.